Hello and welcome back to Great Geek Gear. I'm very sorry for the hiatus over the past few weeks. There's just been some really insane things going on, some good, some bad. To be perfectly honest with you, I'll give you a quick life update. For anyone that doesn't know or isn't aware, the live events industry has been pretty much decimated with the pandemic and everything COVID-19 related. It's just been a really hard time since March. I started this channel as soon as I got furloughed from the company that I was working for because I felt like I needed to keep going and doing live event technology content for people, whether it was for a company or not. So I knew as soon as I got the call that this is where I would be going, is bringing my talents to YouTube and trying to show people about products that are exciting and have to do with live events. During this time, I tried to take another job, tried to pivot, and it just didn't work out for me. I tried to get into the virtual events world, and I am a tactile live events person. Virtual is something I can do, I'm just not that person. So I tried for a couple of months to get that going, and it didn't work out for me. I've also spent a lot of time over the last few weeks working with the Massachusetts Live Events Coalition, which is it's an offshoot or a chapter of the National Live Events Coalition. I'll put all of their information down in the description in case you're interested in checking them out. I strongly suggest, if you're in the Massachusetts area, to check out the MLEC. I've been a major proponent of them and the work that they do for a long time now, and we've just had so many events and demonstrations and video recordings and things like that it's taken up a lot of my time. But here we are. I feel like we're back and we'll be better than ever, hopefully. So what I have for you today is an overview of the Arkaos Videomapper product with video mapping. I figured since the news came out that InMusic had acquired Arkaos, this would be a pretty good product to focus on for my comeback episode. Do keep in mind that I have not touched this product in about 2.5 years. I think 2017 was the last time I really did a show in Arkaos. I've already recorded the training and the overview, so I know where I fumble and some of the things that I messed up on, and you'll see them as we go through. But I think it's important to note that while I'm going through and kind of relearning the system, it's really meant to just be an overview for you, the viewer, maybe someone that's interested in the Arkaos software and how to start mapping with it. Our system that we have set up here is just a one projector unit. I 3D printed some blocks so that we could map to them and they would show up nice. And just threw some content up. You'll see us load in some animated GIF files, some MOV files, MP4 files, images, PNG files, things like that. You'll see how all of that is done and also how to map with them. I do feel like in some future episodes that we will tackle DMX control, the Q player, as well as some pip mapping. With that, let's get to the overview. All right, so here we are in Videomapper Pro. I'm running 5.6.1 in demo mode currently. As you can see over here, my license is not active. I do have a license. It's just not, it's synced to another machine, and I'm working with Arkaos to get it converted over so that I can put it back on one of these. So this is Videomapper Pro 5.6.1. And there's a few things to note before we get started. So in preferences, we're going to, I run most of my shows that I do in Arkaos in theater mode, and you'll kind of see why. But there is also fixture mode, which is really if you're going to control it with Arkaos, with DMX control or a lighting console or something like that. So we're going to run it in theater. Our output needs to be set to Videomapper mode. If we set it to instant mode, it's basically thinking that you're going out to a monitor. which is possible. I mean, you can run this as a standard media server as well with just a channel out. But for what we're doing, we want to feed the signal coming out of here into Videomapper. So we want to put it in Videomapper mode. We don't have to mess with anything else until we get to play with ClingNet and LED Mapper in the future. If you do want to play with DMX, I recommend ArtNet. If you've got a Grand MA or MA Lite 2, there are fixtures in there for Arkaos Media Master Pro, and you can set it to that and then put your session number, universe number, everything in here. But with ArtNet, you can have any ArtNet DMX device on the same network essentially control this system, and I'll show you how in a little while. Most subnets and universes start 0, but if you're on a specific console or in a specific universe for whatever reason, you can make those changes here. And if this picks up any ArtNet signal, it will take it instantly. We'll do that in a different video. I think this is a little bit more of an overview for today. So there's that. You can also control it with MIDI if you've got a MIDI controller of some sort, or beat pads, things like that. You can control it with that. We can set our audio inputs and outputs. Timecode, if we're going to use timecode generator or something to control this. Performance, I recommend not messing with this. This one is set up for best performance by default. You can lower the the preview style of the content so that, obviously it doesn't need to be full res up in these little boxes. It can just show you what's there. Right now it's defaulted to full. It'll play full. But you'll see if we start to really push the computer, it'll start to lower the frame rate of the previews. Activation, this is great if you're trying to set your license up. If you click on the Manage License button, it'll say your computer's machine ID, and then are you using a dongle, are you using a serial key file, which you get off the Arkaos website, or an activation code, which you would get in a box. If you got a clamshell box from Arkaos, there'd be a little activation code in there that you'd put in. So right now, we're not using any of those. We're just going to use the demo. And all that means is it's going to spit up a watermark every 60 seconds or so. And that's it. So without changing anything, the way everything was set up with the default is how I want it. Basically just installed this fresh. The first time you load this, sometimes it'll have no visuals all the way across the channels. Sometimes it will have things loaded in there. And if that's the case, I always like to go up to Edit, Clear Show. And then it will say, would you like to proceed? This will clear all of your patches, your cue lists. And then we hit yes. And that will blow everything out. Sometimes when you install it and it's got those graphics already loaded, what can happen is sometimes there's mixing or positional or effects on that you might not remember. And if you go change that, you might try to figure out why something's messed up. It's happened to me plenty of times, so I just like to clear everything once it starts. So here we are in Media Master 5, and what I like to do is once I load this, I like to go load Videomapper. So you can load Videomapper from here by going to Edit Videomapper, and it will open the program. Or when you load the program, it will give you an icon on the desktop too. So if you want to load LED Mapper, the Media Hub, the Videomapper, all those will install on the desktop as well. So I've already got it open, and I'm going to just put it in full screen. So in Videomapper mode, we've got two screens, or two outputs, I guess we'd call them. Our generic non-PNP monitor is our local laptop monitor that I've got here, and you always want to make sure that that is shut off, because as soon as we go to full screen output. That is going to mess everything up if it thinks that your local screen is an output for this. And then here you can see A2 is an M323W projector, small little guy. And it automatically sets up one default surface for you. And if we click on that default surface, what we'll see is our output down below. And up here is our input, which is really where when we're feeding content in, we can choose here if we want to crop it or distort it in a certain way. And then this is the actual output that we're affecting. So if you want to see what that means, if you can see on my output screen, you'll see the little red box moving around. And what I'm going to do real quick is get it to get real close. So this is essentially how we map objects and surfaces. So I've got it pretty close. I'm not going to get too far into this yet because we we have a lot to do. But you can add another surface, and then you'll see it stuck it here. And now I can put that surface, I don't know, somewhere else. I can't really see what I'm doing. I didn't think about the layout of this too well, of where the actual projector and the blocks are. But you can see what I'm doing. It's, you know, it's moving it around. I'm getting it fairly close. And we'll mess around with these a little bit later. So going back to Media Master, up here you get 12 videos that can play at the same time. Some computers are very limited if they don't have a lot of processing power. This one has okay processing power. We'll see over here in the status our frames per second counter. So basically you want this to never really go below 30 frames per second, or you start to notice it's glitching or skipping a little bit. Right now we're running at about 60 frames per second. Our display is running at 60, and our CPU is not taxed at all. It is ready to go. And you can see that it's connected to Videomapper and it's spitting out content. So I like to look at this like an audio mixer in a sense. Up here from the top is where our source plugs in, usually XLR, plugs in at the top of a channel, and you read it all the way down to your faders down here. We have the ability to load content here, and if you click on the no visual, it brings up your library. This is all default stuff that it automatically gives you. So I'm just real quick, I'm going to load we'll load this because it's full screen. And right now there's no effect being run. There's no positional changes being done. There's no mixing other than replace, which is the basic mixing setting for everything is replace. And then our output right now is just set to that default surface that Videomapper had created. You can see it in here. I'll actually change the name of it to, we'll call it default 1. And then when we go back to Media Master Pro, you'll see that when we click on output, there's default 1 and surface 1, and those are the two surfaces that we've built so far. So if I set this to be default 1 or surface 1, default 1, and I bring it up, you'll see that it plays in the default 1 square that I've created essentially. And on Videomapper, you can see that it shows up here too. And then if I change it to surface 1, you'll see that it plays on that surface 1 right here. And if I move it around live, you can see where everything's going. So I'm going to stick it over there. I'm going to drag this over, pull this down. You know, it's close. It's not perfect, but it's close. All right. So we go back here and And this fader that's right here is essentially like a mixer fader. The more you bring it up, the more, not necessarily sensitivity, but the more level you're bringing into the to the channel. And it will play that file all the way down to the value number 1, which is basically right here. So if you think of DMX, there's 255 values for every channel. And that's how this works. So at the first little value is when it starts playing the file. And you'll see it does highlight this channel a little bit to let you know that it is running. There is a nice pause button feature now that you can click, and that will pause your content without having to reload it or without having to worry about it dropping off. That was a nice ad when they put that in there so that we didn't have to worry about how we stop these. And what's nice is it stops it. And it picks up right where you left off. It doesn't restart the file. Where if you were to bring this down and bring it back up, it starts it over. Oh, we still have the pause button on. So if we bring it down, bring it up, it starts it over. Bring it down, bring it up, it starts it over. And you can see these little blocks right here. So the top block is a Q. The middle block has a DMX value. And then there's a MIDI channel. I've never actually done MIDI on Arkaos before. If anyone has, I don't have a MIDI controller to do it. That's more of a VJ thing, I think. If you're doing a lot of mixing audio and you know, you want to trigger certain things on Videomapper to happen to the audio cues. I think that's more of a MIDI thing. I'm not sure. I'm not a VJ. But I do use these two blocks a lot. So the Q block is, if you click on it, essentially what that tells us, if you click on the keyboard tab, is that if I click the Q button, that this channel will activate. So if I hit OK, and this is by default all the way across, 1 through 10 here is essentially your keyboard, QWERTY, all the way across. So if I hit Q, it ends it. If I hit Q again and hold it, it stays on. If I let go, it closes it. If I just touch it, it's only going to stay on as long as I'm holding the key. Unless you turn on this latch button right here, which is also in the options. So if I'm under keyboard, see there's this latched checkbox. I can click that. And then if I tap the Q button, it latches and stays on. If I hit the Q button again, it shuts off. So if you're looking to set up a few cues across, and that's what you want to do, is hit them with the button so that they stay on, that's great. If you want to set up a couple of these that are momentary, so that, you know, if I bring up these circles and maybe I want them to come up over this, I would hold the W key. Right now it's set to all outputs, so if I hit them, it's going to show on everything. And maybe I just want that to be for a second. Maybe I want to remove black, which is easy as just going to mixing, selecting remove black. And now when I hold it down, it keys out the black and it just has that circle shoot over the building. And then there's a whole mess of effects that you can do. There's just so many. I mean, they really did a good job putting a lot of these in here. There's an old movie effect that looks pretty good. You can just cycle through these. I mean, these are insane. These are really cool, I think, if you're doing some VJ stuff. Like, that's really cool. I like that. Pop art. Posterization. Radial blur. That looks really cool with motion like that. RGB cycle. Ripple. So there's all these effects you can play with, and all of them are customizable. So if you click on the icon, you can come in here and you can mess with everything. Oh yeah, look at that. So they've got some templates in here now for MIDI controllers. Looks like you can have APC 40, MIDI mix. All these are pre-installed. Elation. Oh, look at that. That's pretty cool. I'll have to see if I can find an APC 40 from somebody and give it a try. All right. So there's two ways to add content to our library manager. What we can do is we can go up here to edit library management, and this opens up the screen, and we can go in and essentially just start dragging files in. Or if you click on the no visual or whatever, if you click on the thumbnail up here, it will open the library management tool as well. It's the same thing. Nothing's different here. And what I like to do is I like to set up these folders based on shows. Obviously, it's however you want to do it, but I'm going to rename this folder to, let's see, put our Great Gig Gear logos in here. And then if I go to this window, go to downloads. So I've downloaded a lot of GIFs, some video files, and things like that to test out with this today. But let's see if we do. These are all. Yeah. So see, I got some cool GIFs. So we're gonna put the Great Gig Gear logos in. We're just gonna select them and drag them in. And it puts them right in. So now, if I want to bring up my logo, I'm going to have to go back to replace. So now it puts my logo in front of the animation underneath it. And Arkaos Pro software by design, and it's been a little while for me, I believe his latest takes precedence. So if you're a lighting programmer, latest takes precedence means whichever cue or whichever channel you bring up takes precedence over the last one. So if I were to, let's say, well, I'm speaking a little out of turn. So right now, there's another little button that you need to know about. And this is your normal foreground or background button. Now this will alter the precedent of that particular clip. So if I set this channel 1 to be always background, then it will never play over anything that is normal or foreground. It just, there's no way, it'll never let it happen. Even if we set it, let's see. And we'll wait till the demo logo goes away. So I can sit here and press this all the time, and it's always going to show up in the background of anything that's set up over it. So this is set up as a normal, essentially this is like having layer 1, layer 2, and layer 3. But it's really just a precedent model, so that you've got anything in the foreground will always show up over normal. Anything in normal will always show up in front of background. But if you have multiple normals or multiple foregrounds, they'll show up in a latest takes precedent manner. So if I was to put a different thing, so here, I'll show you another one. Well, let's make an animated GIFs folder. And we'll go in here to downloads. And I've got some animated GIFs here to have some fun with. So let's see, we'll pick 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is a cool one. Got to have Brittany. Anyone that's been in any of my Arkaos training classes in the past. There's a lot of Brittany GIFs. That was a joke. So I've selected a couple of those. I'm going to drag them up. And you can see it automatically puts them in here. I'm going to select the, we'll do the RoboCop logo. So now, if I have the background running, which is in channel 1, my logo up. I got to set this to latch. So if you hit this latch button up here, then all of the channels will latch when you hit them, not just one specifically. So it brings up my logo. Now if I hit RoboCops, which is in channel 3 with the letter E right here on the keyboard, that takes precedent over everything else because it's set to normal, the same as my logo. Now, if we take that off and set this to background, what should happen is it should take over for what's in channel 1 right now and go behind my logo, which it does. So hopefully that makes sense. If you do any kind of graphic design and you understand layers and which ones take precedent over other ones, this makes sense to you then. All right, so one thing to note about the library management tool is Arkaos likes MPEG-2 encoders to be used, or codecs, in their video files, but I've found that MP4 H.264 files work very, very well as long as they're, depending on your machine, 2K or 1080p or lower. 4K files on this particular machine, which is a couple years old, I mean, it's an i7 with 16 gigs of RAM. I mean, it's a good gaming computer, but you know, it's not like a server. And you would go to Arkaos and buy an actual server if you were looking to do a ton of 4K for your theater or arena or something. So I find that when I render files, if you know, MPEG-2 isn't the best for high definition. If you do MPEG-4 H.264, it comes out really well. It does not like QuickTime files, .mov files. It can take them and it will re-encode them and it'll do everything, but they get choppy as hell. They're not great files to use. If your computer can handle them, then you should be fine, but they don't work very well for me, at least on this machine. Just a bit of warning for you. But it's same deal. If you've got video files, which I don't think I have anything on here that, actually, no, I do. On this USB drive, I specifically got MOV files and MPEG-4 files. So let's do one, two, this, and this. And I'm just going to name this MP4 so that we know what's in here. Drag them all in. So it's actually re-encoding them. That's what this is doing up here. It's telling you that it's setting them up to work in Arkaos. And one of these is a pretty big file, so I probably should have just left that one out. Worst case, I'll make a cut here so that you guys don't have to sit here and watch. And that was stupid to do. Let's go here and pause. All right, so for the sake of everybody, I paused the recording for a couple of minutes. It did only take about maybe 90 seconds to maybe 2 minutes to do this 5 gigabyte file that's over here. But you can see it, you know, loaded them all in. I've got some files here. And then in this folder, we'll put some MOV files in, and you can just, I'll show you, we'll do a test. So I'm not going to load all of these in, but we'll pick a couple of these big boys. I don't even know what these files are right now. I just remember I downloaded them from Videoblocks. So we'll drag them over. All right, those loaded. Oh yeah, these are pretty cool files. So we get some MOVs, some MP4s, some GIFs, some logos with some transparent backgrounds, everything. We got a whole bunch of stuff in here now. So what we're going to do, since this is just a basic overview of Arkaos today, we'll get into the Q player, probably have its own video soon. If I can get some APCs and do those MIDI controllers, we'll definitely do that. I'll also do some some DMX control in the next few days. But what I'd like to do now is get into Videomapper, since this is the reason why I got this software, and the reason that we used this at a company that I was at before, was this was so easy to use without other third-party software and other things going on. It was all self-contained. It worked great. So what I'm going to do here is you can see these two surfaces that I created in the projector. Again, this is my monitor, my local monitor, and this is the projector. These are the two surfaces that we've created already. I'm going to just delete them so we can start over fresh. So I'm going to create a... So this is a funny question. People ask me a lot. Why is there only a square and a triangle? Why aren't there any circles? I don't know the question to that. I thought the question was that a circle just had so many articulated points that it would be impossible to control. And my answer ultimately turned into we can make a square a circle very easily with a mask. Very easily with a mask. And I'll show you how to do masks in a moment. But for what we've created and what our scenic pieces are, if you want to call them that, you know, we've got some blocks that we 3D printed. So what we'll do is we'll create some surfaces right now, and I'll show you how to do some three-dimensional things. So I've got a little preview monitor next to me, and the first cube that I'm going to mess with is this big one, and I'm just going to get it kind of close. So when you create a surface, you get all these points of articulation. You can drag the corner. We can stretch one of the sides over. There's a lot of different things we can do. So what I'm going to do is hopefully map this cube the best I can. And you're probably wondering, how do we wrap this little square around that cube? Well, let me show you. What we want to do is go over here to where it says Edit Grid. And when we select that, now we have these new circles within some of our squares. And those are going to allow us to pinch and move around pieces of this square. So now that I've got it relatively close, and I'm looking at a preview monitor, so you guys might have a little bit higher definition than I do, and you might be saying, Mark, this looks like crap. You're not even close. But I'm trying to be as close as I can. So you want these red lines to be your, essentially your border around your whole set piece, because that's going to be your first raster of pixels, is the red line. The white line, you won't see at all. So what we're going to do is try to get this to be as close as possible so that we can bend this in. And then we're going to bring this corner over. So you see it's kind of wrapping around right now. If you want to use your keyboard to nudge these over, try to dial them in, you can. A regular arrow press is 10 pixels, and I believe control arrow is 1 pixel. And I'm just going to try to get it close. All right, so my corners are fairly close. And now you're probably saying, well, Mark, that bend looks terrible. Right in the middle of the square or the rectangle. How do we fix that? Well, when we selected Edit Grid, it allows us to add new control points. So if I want to add a control point horizontally, it sticks one right in the middle of the square. If I want to add a control point vertically, it sticks it right in the middle of the rectangle. Now I want to get rid of the vertical one and just keep the horizontal one. And I essentially want to make sure that it's right on the middle of this cube. And that looks pretty close. I did not set this up very well. It's my fault. But that's pretty close. So now we've wrapped a surface around this square. And if we want to test what it looks like, we can go back to Media Master. And while we're in Media Master, I'm going to pick something new. So let's do, I don't know, let's do an MPEG 4. And I'll do this cool green one. I guess that's kind of nice looking. And I'm going to select surface number 1, which is this surface that we created right here. Is called surface number 1. And that is in channel R, or channel 4 of our media server. So I'm going to click that. And there you go. It's wrapped around that block really nicely, actually. It looks pretty cool. It's a little bright. We can bring that brightness down a bit over here in the corner. There's a brightness and a contrast button that we can adjust. So that's how we wrap something around an object like that. I'm going to build a couple more surfaces just so that we can have a show here. So I'm going to build this cube. I'm going to put a little face on the front of it. Get it kind of close. I'm going to click Edit Grid. Man, it's super dry in the cabin today, so all this talking isn't helping. So I'm going to get this close to the corners. This looks pretty close. All right, and that is Surface 2, so I'm going to go back to Media Master. Looking at this preview monitor, I keep noticing every time I click on Media Master, it doesn't always change right away on OBS. So hopefully you guys see what I see. So I'm going to put in something new. Let's do an MOV file now. And let's do something cool. So let's put this cool thing up on Surface 2. All right, so you can see it's, you know, one of those 80s static balls playing on the cube. And then if, let's say I wanted to put something over that, like a key, I can right click on Surface 2 and duplicate this surface. So I get Surface 2 copy 1, which basically just redraws it. And like I was saying before with latest takes precedence, that's how the surfaces work in Videomapper as well. So we get Surface 1 is at the bottom, Surface 2 is in the middle, Surface 2 copy 1 is at the top. So Surface 2 copy 1, whatever we show on that is going to show over Surface 2. Does that make sense? It's just like in Photoshop. So let's go back to Media Master Pro. Let's set the next channel to be Surface 2 copy 1. And let's add this little dancing figure. And let's remove black. Let's set this as the foreground, and let's set this as the background. And it stopped running. I'm not sure why it stopped running. It's running here. It's just not. Oh, told you it's been a while. Because I have a surface over Surface 2 that's currently not showing anything. It's showing black. So that's why you can't see anything right now, because if I was to make this surface not viewable, then you can see that channel again. That's why. So now that we've set this to remove black and we bring her up, she dances. And let's go back to Videomapper. So we've got Surface 1, Surface 2 that I've created. Now maybe I want to have something keyed over what's on Surface 2. So what we can do is go back here, and I've loaded this into Surface 2. So that's running. And maybe I want to have this dancing person over what's happening here. So I'm going to set its output to Surface 2, like it is. I'm going to set this to the foreground and make sure that this is either normal or in the background. I can't remember if this is actually a black background or if it's transparent, but I'm going to do remove black anyway because it couldn't hurt. And then when we bring this up, now we have a dancing figure over that video file. And she's just dancing away. All right. So I think the last thing that we'll go over today before our next overview is going to be how cropping works. So I'm going to shut all of these off so that there's nothing playing. And let's see if we can find something that would look good. This is cool. This one comes with Arkaos. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to draw a couple more surfaces. I'm going to do these towers really quickly. I know that I really can't see them very well. I thought I planned this out a lot better than I did. And then we're going to put this up in that corner. We're going to put this one up in that corner. All right. I'm going to build another one. And put that one over here. This one's right on with the projector, so it's don't need too much altering. I think I got a bottle of water or something. All right. So I'm going to ignore the two little teeny tiny cubes on the side for right now. But I've got the big cube wrapped around, the cube on top of it with one surface on the front, and the two tall rectangles are mapped out right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate every single one of those surfaces. Mainly because we're going to do some pretty destructive things to those surfaces, and we don't want to lose... I'm actually going to walk the originals. We don't want to lose those because they're there. We need them for other things. So these copies, and we can name them anything we want. Right now I'm going to just keep them as copies. Essentially what we're going to do with them is we're going to load a file that's going to play mapped across all of these items as one blended image, rather than something different on every cube. So what we're going to do is take these 4 surfaces that we've created, and we're going to create an output group. And we do that by going to Edit, Output Management. And you can see it says Groups. Right now we're on the All Output group. All of them are checked. We want to create a new group. We're going to call this, I usually call it Blend. And hit OK. And we're only going to select those new surfaces that we just created. Hit Close. Now what this does for us is it lets us go down to Output, and you can see surfaces 1, 2, 3, 4, and our copy 1, 2, 3, 4. And then our group that we created is called Blend. That's the one that we made. So I'm going to select Blend, and I'm going to turn this all the way up. And then what you see is, because we've selected all of those surfaces, that's what we see on the output, is that file is playing on all those surfaces. So now what we want to do, and I recommend that you click on the surface over here rather than click on the actual blocks, because you might select the underneath surface and mess with that one. So I recommend you do it this way. So we're going to select, I'm going to do this by eyeball, but you can grid this out. You can do all the math in advance. If you're doing a building with windows and things like that. It's really easy to create masks and things like that so that this works the way you want it to. But I'm going to try to eyeball this just to give you a sense of what we're actually doing, what's happening here. So I'm going to take, this is our big cube in the middle. And what this input section up top is that we haven't touched yet is basically a big cropper. So I'm going to take the corner. Actually, I'm going to take this and this. Is it not going to let me click? I got to turn the edit grid off, I guess. So I'm going to bring it down. And you can see what I'm doing. I'm basically creating a crop mask. So now if we go to Surface 2, actually what a trick you can do is you can click Show All, and it'll show you the surface that we just did right here, so that when we're drawing these, makes a little bit more sense. All right. That blends together pretty well right there. All right, now we're going to take this guy on the side, and I'm going to crop it like that. You can see what it's doing in the video here. You know, it's pretty close, but it's basically making one blended image all the way across. And live, it looks pretty good. It looks close. So what we're going to do, it looks like what I might have done here on this first surface is when I unchecked edit grid, I think I screwed it all up. So I'm going to go back and fix this. There we go. All right. So live, oops, I'm overshooting now. I'm just touching it up. Just touching it up. As close as I can get it. All right. So we've done the two tall blocks and the two blocks in the center with this image. What we might want to try to do is something a little bit different. Maybe if we put a face in there. Let's do Brit. So I'm going to put Brittany in channel 8, set her to blend. I'm going to release channel 7. We'll bring up Brit. Oh, we lost our live camera. Wonder what happened. Well, let me pause and see what happened. All right, yeah, our camera died. That was a little weird. So, all right, so we're back. So you can see that Brittany is playing blended over everything. This might not be the best file. Let's see if we do something MP4. See how those look. That's not the best either. Usually something with like a face works the best. I don't think any of these are super wide, and they're GIFs, so they're kind of glitchy. But yeah, you can kind of see RoboCop over everything. So here's what we'll do. Let's put this video file in. I'm going to make it loop in a little bit later and loop out a little bit later. So here, this is something I probably should have shown you a little bit earlier too. If you click on this edit button, you can affect if this file plays once, if it loops continuously, if it loops and then plays backwards and then loops and then plays backwards, if it's run by timecode, if it stretches or maintains aspect ratio, where in the priority level. You can change that here if you want. If there's audio or something like that in the file itself, you can either turn the volume all the way up or down or pan it if you want. You can set the speed, so we can slow it down, we can speed it up. We can say where we want the loop to start. It'd be great if this wasn't in percent and was in time, but I understand, you know, can't have it all. So right now it's playing Britney Spears live concert, which is huge and doesn't really work as well. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to close that down. I'm going to change this to put this up. I'm going to change the speed of this to 200% so that it doesn't look so glitchy. And let's make it ping pong. So it plays from 0 to whatever, 2 seconds, and then it goes from 2 back to 0. Ping pong effect. And then for positioning, I think what we'll do is crop this a little bit. So we can actually affect positioning and things like that here. We can set rotations and stuff like that. So if we want to put Brittany, maybe we want to zoom her out a little bit. And move her down a little bit so that you can see it across all of those objects. So actually, yeah, that looks pretty good right there. I'm going to move her over. Move her over this way just a little bit. Oh, too much. See, if I have multiple monitors, I could have all of these things open at the same time. All right, that looks pretty good. That's a pretty good little crop we've done. And then we want to make sure, this is number one rule when I do Arkaos lessons. So this is the first time I've touched this software in probably 2 years. And I'm sure it shows because I'm kind of bouncing all over the place, but I used to train this software all of the time, virtually and in person. And the one thing that would always mess us up was saving over default settings. So right now, the preset setting is called full screen. If we were to save this over full screen, then all of these other files are all going to crop to the same position because they're all set to full screen, as you can see under position. So we always, always, always save to new. And we're going to call this our Brit crop. Click OK. Hit close. And now you'll see that position has changed to Brit crop. I can go up to full screen and it'll go back to the way it was. And then I go back to Brit crop and it's cropped the way we wanted it. So the last thing I'll show you today, because I think that you can get pretty far with this. And mind you, everything that we've done today is with completely free software. I mean, other than the watermark showing up every now and then, we've been able to do all of this with no limitations. That watermark is really the only limitation. So the last question everybody asks is, all right, Mark, well, how do we get all of the text and red lines and markings off of our projected output? And that is super easy. That is up here in Videomapper. Basically, all we have to do is not show our cursor on full screen and not display surface information. And then there's, I think this one's flash. Yeah, so if you have this one selected, anytime you select a surface, you'll see it flash out on the projection. But I usually leave that off. So this right here is what shuts off all the lines and all the surface name and numbers, so that you have a show to show. And that's it. So let's see if we go back and if we shut Brit off and maybe we do this green thing on blend. It doesn't look horrible. It actually looks pretty cool. It blends across the whole thing. Maybe we can put Terminator head in there, see if it shows anything. No, it's not really cropped very well for what we're doing. RoboCop, does that look any better now that we've cropped it? Not so much. Five, four, three. That's a cool little countdown. That actually shows that it's blended pretty well too. So this is not perfect by any means. You know, we've really just scratched the surface with what we can do with the software. I feel like this was more of a reacclimation for me since I haven't touched it in so long. I feel like I could come up with some content now to teach you how to use the Q player, how to do some really intricate mappings, how to do some DMX control. I've got some videos that I've done in the past that I'll try to update. I don't have a lot of the hardware that I had available to me in the past with some other companies, so we might try to do this with some free stuff, like maybe there's some free DMX mixers on my iPad or something that I can download, and I can show you how we can call up cues and scenes and things like that. We'll also do some pip mapping, which didn't really get to today, but it mainly because I don't have any content. I don't know where all that content went that I created that was all pipped and ready to go, but I'll show you that in the next video. This is really just an intro overview for Arkaos, and I think we've done everything that we've needed to do. Hopefully I don't lead anyone astray. If you do want to see what it looks like if we try to overload this and run some pretty hefty video files. I'm going to run all 12, and we're going to do Q, W, E, R, T, Y, U, I, O, P, So we have all 12 channels running right now. I have no idea what my output looks like because everything is set to all outputs, so all this stuff is running like crazy. And if you look over here at our gas gauge, so we're running a couple animated GIFs, couple of MOV files. These are all MOV files, and a couple of MP4 files, H.264 files. They're all running pretty well. This graphic up here is obviously nothing going on. They all look good up here. They're all playing well. And we're getting about 23 to 24 frames a second. The CPU is starting to get taxed a little bit. I can hear the fans kicking in now that we're running 12 channels of video. And our display is still running at 60 frames per second. So I don't think our output is being affected too much. But yeah, that's how it runs. So this is a decent gaming computer. It's probably 5 years old. Laptop with a Core i7, 16 gigs of RAM. Not a solid state drive, and it's playing these clips all pretty good. I mean, the GIFs look a little choppy because GIFs are choppy, but the video files actually all look pretty good. And on the output, you can see, let's see if we make this one our blend. You know, it looks pretty good. If I go through and actually assign all of these to a surface, yeah, they're all doing weird stuff. So I'm trying to tax the machine right now. That's really all I'm doing. The output doesn't matter. And it's doing pretty well. It's playing 23, 24 frames per second. The display is still running at 60. The output is still running pretty strong. Not having any issues. I am noticing that I'm fairly new to OBS, and this is one of the first times I've used OBS to do a screen record. And what I've noticed is it only animates the screen when I move the mouse. So you guys probably have not seen a lot of what I've been doing because I haven't been moving the mouse too much. But I'll have to figure or anything that I don't know. I'll figure it out, and hopefully the next one will be a little bit better. Hopefully this was a pretty good introduction to Arkaos Videomaster and Videomapper for you. You know, try to do more of these. I'll try to do the Q player really soon for you, and DMX control. Those are really the two big things that the people ask for. So that's it. Hope you enjoyed this. Hope it wasn't too long. Hope I wasn't a rambler. And have a good one. Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the episode. I told you it was going to be a little weird. Like I said, I was relearning the software as I was going through it. I was only a little bit rusty. There were a few things that I messed up on, and I tried to let everyone know while I was going through it that that's what I messed up on. I will work on the chapters for the Q player. Obviously is something that's very important. Some DMX control, ArtNet control, and the pip mapping stuff is super easy. I can get that stuff done pretty soon. But I did want to see if that was even your cup of tea and what you wanted to see, or if there were other products or technologies out there that you wanted me to get a hold of. Let me know in the comments. Let me know in the email address that's down in the description. I try to answer all of them. So if you leave me something, I'll definitely take a look at the possibility of looking at that particular product. I truly hope that everyone is enjoying the work that we're doing here, and I hope that everyone out there stays healthy and safe. Thank you.